Love wasn't the plan, until it became the problem. Welcome to this channel. Please, kindly hit the subscription button, comment and like as this motivates more stories from this channel. The contract
Please, just look at the contract. 6 months, that's all I ask. I desperately need you to pretend to be my wife.
was simple, 6 months of pretending to be in love. No feelings, no complications, no falling for each other. Amara Okonkwo stared at the document on the glass table, her reflection ghosting across the pristine surface of the Seoul high-rise office. Across from her sat a man she'd met exactly 47 minutes ago, a man who was offering her 200 million won to be his fake fiancé. Park Jae-won's heir to the Hanyul Group empire, cover of Forbes' career 3 times before 30, the kind of beautiful that made people stop on the street and forget where they were going. And he needed her asterisk. You want me to pretend to be engaged to you, Amara said slowly, because your grandmother won't give you control of the company unless you're married. Engaged, he corrected. Marriage isn't required, just the appearance of commitment. To a complete stranger. To a woman my grandmother hasn't already met and disapproved of. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She's rejected every Korean woman from every acceptable family. She's rejected Japanese heiresses, Chinese businesswomen, and the daughter of a European ambassador. She says I have no taste in partners. And you think she'll approve of me? Yi-won's eyes swept over her, not with the dismissiveness she'd grown used to in Seoul, but with something more calculating. You're different, he said. You're unexpected, and my grandmother respects nothing more than someone who surprises her. Amara almost laughed. Unexpected was one word for it. She was a 28-year-old Nigerian-American woman who'd come to Seoul 3 years ago to work as a translator and cultural consultant. She had a tiny apartment in Mapogu, a cat named Chimamanda, and exactly 43,000 won in her savings account after her company had folded last month. She was drowning, and this man was offering her a lifeline. Why me, she asked. Specifically, out of all the women in Seoul, why walk into a job agency and pick me? Something flickered in Yi-won's expression, just for a moment, just long enough for Amara to notice. You were the only applicant who looked me in the eye and told me my tie was ugly. Amara blinked. She had said that. 15 minutes into their interview, when she'd still thought this was a legitimate translator position, she'd glanced at his silk tie and muttered that the pattern looked like something her uncle would wear to a funeral. She'd expected to be thrown out. Instead, he'd laughed. It had transformed his entire face, cracked through the cold corporate mask, and revealed something human underneath, something almost warm. And then the mask had slid back into place, and he'd explained what he actually needed. Your grandmother, Amara said carefully, the one who has to approve of me, what's she like? Terrifying, Yi-won's voice was flat. She built Hanyul Group from nothing after my grandfather died. She survived the IMF crisis, 3 hostile takeovers, and a scandal that would have destroyed anyone else. She's 81 years old, and she still comes into the office every day at 6 a.m. And if she doesn't like me, then this arrangement ends, you keep a portion of the payment for your trouble and we never speak again. He leaned forward slightly. But if she does like you, if you can convince her that I've finally found someone worthy, then you get the full amount, enough to pay off your debts, fund your return to America, or do whatever you want with your life. 200 million won. Roughly $150,000. Amara thought about her empty refrigerator, her maxed-out credit card, the apologetic email from her landlord about next month's rent. She thought about her mother back in Atlanta, working double shifts at the hospital, still paying off the loans from Amara's college education. She thought about how tired she was of struggling. What are the rules? She heard herself ask. Yi-won's expression didn't change, but something in his posture relaxed, just slightly. The contract is in front of you. 6 months of public appearances as my fiancé, minimum of 3 events per week. You'll move into my apartment, separate bedrooms of course. You'll meet my family, attend company functions, and convince everyone that we're genuinely in love. Physical boundaries. Whatever you're comfortable with. Hand-holding, certainly. Perhaps a kiss for the cameras when necessary. Nothing more unless mutually agreed upon. And when it's over, we stage a quiet mutual breakup. You leave with your payment and a glowing reference letter. We go our separate ways. It sounded so clean, so simple. Amara had learned long ago that nothing in life was ever that simple. Why do I feel like you're not telling me everything? Jae-won was silent for a long moment. Because there's one more thing, he finally said. My grandmother, she's sick. The doctors give her a year, maybe less. She wants to see me settled before she dies. She wants to know the company will be in capable hands, with a partner beside me who can handle the pressure. His voice didn't waver, but Amara saw his fingers tighten almost imperceptibly on the arm of his chair. This isn't just about getting control of the company, she said slowly. This is about giving your dying grandmother peace. Yes, that's a lot of pressure. Yes. And you think I can do this? Pretend to be someone I'm not, fool your entire family? Jae-won met her eyes. For the first time since she'd walked in, he looked almost vulnerable. I think, he said quietly, that you're the only person I've met in a very long time who might actually be brave enough to try. Amara looked at the contract, at the astronomical number at the bottom of the page, at the signature line waiting for her name. This is insane, she thought. This is the kind of thing that happens in dramas, not in real life. This cannot possibly end well. But she thought about her empty bank account, her worried mother, the visa that would expire in 3 months if she didn't find new employment. She thought about how it felt to walk through Seoul as a black woman, the stares, the whispers, the constant awareness of her own difference. How hard she'd worked to build a life here, only to watch it crumble. And she thought about Park Jae-won, the billionaire heir with the cold mask and the almost warm laugh, who had walked into a job agency and chosen her asterisk. Maybe he was desperate. Maybe she was too. Amara picked up the pen. One condition, she said. Name it. If I'm going to do this, I need the truth. Always. No surprises, no hidden agendas, no making me look like a fool in front of your family. We're partners in this. Or we're nothing. Jae-won studied her for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. Partners, he agreed. Amara signed her name on the line. And just like that, her entire life changed. 72 hours later, the apartment was bigger than any space Amara had ever lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering sprawl of Gangnam. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive leather, the kind of minimalist aesthetic that screamed money without being vulgar about it. A grand piano sat in one corner, untouched and gleaming. Her suitcase looked absurdly small in the marble foyer. Your room is down the hall, Jae-won said, gesturing. The one with the blue door, the bathroom is private. The kitchen is fully stocked, or if you prefer, there's a chef on call who can prepare meals. A chef on call, Amara repeated. His name is Mr. Park, no relation. He makes excellent *J-Jiggy*. Amara wandered toward the windows, her reflection a dark silhouette against the city lights. How do you live here alone? She asked. It's so empty. I'm rarely home, Jae-won set down his briefcase, and I prefer quiet. Quiet or lonely? He didn't answer. Amara turned to face him. In the 3 days since she'd signed the contract, they'd met twice more, once to go over the logistics, once for a preliminary wardrobe consultation with a stylist who'd measured every inch of her body without once looking her in the eye. But this was different, this was real. She was living in Park Jae-won's apartment. She was going to be his fake fiancée. We should practice, she said. Practice what? Being a couple. Amara moved closer to him, watching the way his posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. You flinch every time I get within 2 feet of you. Your grandmother is going to notice. I don't flinch. You're flinching right now. Jae-won's jaw tightened. I'm not accustomed to physical contact. Amara raised an eyebrow. You're a CEO, you shake hands with people all day. That's different. How? He was silent. Amara took another step forward, close enough now that she could smell his cologne, something clean and expensive, with notes of cedar and citrus. Here's what I think, she said quietly. I think you've spent so long building walls that you've forgotten how to let anyone in. I think you've spent so long being Park Jae-won the heir, Park Jae-won the CEO, Park Jae-won the eligible bachelor, that you don't remember how to just be Jae-won asterisk. And I think that's why your grandmother has rejected every woman you've brought home, because she can see that none of them have ever actually reached you. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. You've known me for 72 hours, he said. And in 72 hours I've already seen more than most people see in years. She held his gaze. I can't do this alone. If we're going to fool your grandmother, if we're going to fool everyone, then you have to let me in, at least a little, at least enough to make this look real. The apartment was very quiet. Outside, Seoul glittered like a constellation of earthbound stars. What do you suggest? Jae-won finally asked. Amara extended her hand, palm up. Start simple, hold my hand. He looked at her hand like it was a grenade. This is ridiculous. This is necessary. She didn't lower her hand. We have dinner with your grandmother in 4 days. If you can't hold my hand in private, how are you going to do it in front of her? For a long moment he didn't move. Then slowly he reached out. His fingers closed around hers. His hand was warm, warmer than she'd expected. His grip was gentle but firm, like he was holding something fragile. There, Amara said, was that so hard? Yes, he admitted. She laughed, couldn't help it. At least you're honest. You said you wanted truth. I did. She didn't let go of his hand. Tell me something true right now, something nobody else knows. Why? Because that's what couples do, they share secrets. Jae-won was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. I don't actually know how to play piano, he said. My grandmother bought me that one when I was 12, paid for years of lessons, but I never learned. I couldn't tell her, so I keep it here like a monument to my own cowardice. Amara looked at the gleaming grand piano, then back at him. That's surprisingly relatable, she said. Your turn, something nobody knows. She thought for a moment. I've been in Seoul for 3 years, she said, and I've never once been to Namsan Tower. All my friends back home think I go every weekend. I send them photos I find online. But the truth is, I've been too scared to go alone. Scared of what? Of being the only one there without someone to share it with. Their eyes met, held. Amara became suddenly, intensely aware that they were still holding hands. We could go, Jae-won said quietly, together as practice. Practice for what? For being a couple who does things together. Amara smiled, a real smile, the first one she'd given him. Are you asking me on a fake date, Park Jae-won? I suppose I am. Then I suppose I accept. She finally let go of his hand, but the warmth of his touch lingered on her palm long after she'd retreated to her room. 4 days later, Hanyul Group's headquarters occupied 43 floors of a glass tower in Uedo. The executive dining room was on the 42nd floor, with views that stretched across the Han River to the mountains beyond. Amara stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to remember how to breathe. The dress was beautiful, a deep burgundy that the stylist had chosen specifically to complement her skin tone. Her locks were pinned up in an elegant twist, gold earrings catching the light. She looked like someone who belonged in a room full of billionaires. She did not feel like someone who belonged anywhere at all. You're going to be fine. She looked up. Jae-won was standing in the doorway, resplendent in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. Easy for you to say, she muttered. You've been doing this your whole life. And it terrifies me every single time. He moved to stand beside her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. My grandmother has reduced CEOs to tears. She once made a prime minister apologize for wasting her time. She is, without question, the most intimidating person I've ever known. That's not helping. I'm not trying to help, I'm trying to prepare you. He turned to face her directly. She's going to test you, she's going to push you, she's going to look for any sign of weakness, and when she finds it, and she will find it, she's going to press until you either break or push back. Amara's stomach churned. And what should I do? Push back. Jae-won's expression was serious, but his eyes held something almost like admiration. You told me my tie was ugly within 15 minutes of meeting me. That's exactly what my grandmother respects. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. Don't try to impress her with false deference. Just be yourself, the woman who speaks her mind and doesn't apologize for it. And if she doesn't like the real me, then we find another way, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. He reached out and adjusted one of her earrings, a surprisingly intimate gesture. You're remarkable, Amara Okonkwo, even when you don't realize it. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. She's here, he offered her his arm. Ready? Amara took a deep breath. No, she said honestly, but let's do this anyway. In the dining room. Park Jae-won was not what Amara had expected. She'd imagined someone frail, perhaps, 81 years old, dying of an illness Jae-won still hadn't specified. Surely she would be diminished, weakened. The woman sitting at the head of the table looked like she could run a marathon and then negotiate a hostile takeover before lunch. She was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, with silver hair swept back in a perfect chignon. Her hanbok was a deep sapphire blue, traditional yet modern, and her eyes were the exact same shade as Jae-won's, dark, sharp, missing nothing. Those eyes fixed on Amara the moment she entered the room. So, Grandmother Park said, her voice surprisingly strong, this is the woman who has finally captured my grandson's attention. Halmoni asterisk, Jae-won said, bowing respectfully. May I present Amara Okonkwo? Amara, this is my grandmother, Park Jae-won. Amara bowed, a proper Korean bow, 90 degrees, held for a respectful count. She'd practiced in her room for 2 hours last night. Manesio bangupsumnadar asterisk, she said carefully. It is an honor to meet you. Grandmother Park's expression didn't change. Your Korean is adequate, she said. Sit. They sat. Servants materialized with dishes, an elaborate spread of traditional Korean cuisine that Amara had studied extensively in preparation. She knew the names of every dish, the proper way to eat each one, the etiquette around sharing and serving. For the first few minutes no one spoke. They ate in silence, the clink of chopsticks the only sound. Then Grandmother Park set down her utensils. Tell me about yourself, Ms. Okonkwo. Amara swallowed her mouthful of japchae and met the older woman's eyes. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. My parents emigrated from Nigeria before I was born. My father was an engineer, my mother a nurse. I came to Seoul 3 years ago to work as a translator and cultural consultant, specializing in bridging Western and Korean business practices. And your company recently closed. Amara's heart stuttered. She hadn't expected that. Yes, Halmoni asterisk, it did. So you are currently unemployed. Halmoni asterisk, Jae-won started. I am speaking to your fiancé, not to you. Grandmother Park didn't look away from Amara. Answer the question. I am currently between positions, Amara said carefully, but I have several opportunities I'm considering. Including this one. The room went very still. Amara understood with sudden clarity that this was the test, the push Jae-won had warned her about. Grandmother Park knew or suspected that this relationship wasn't what it appeared to be. She had 2 choices, fold or push back. Amara set down her own utensils. Halmoni, she said, may I speak honestly? You may. You're wondering if I'm with your grandson for his money. You're wondering if this is real, or if I'm simply an opportunist who saw a vulnerable target. You're wondering if I'm good enough for him, if I can handle the pressure of this family, if I'll fold the moment things get difficult. She held the older woman's gaze steadily. Those are all fair questions. I would ask them too in your position. Grandmother Park said nothing. But here is what I know, Amara continued. I know that your grandson works 18-hour days because he's trying to prove that he's worthy of the empire you built. I know that he keeps a piano in his apartment that he's never learned to play because he's too afraid to disappoint you. I know that he flinches when people touch him because somewhere along the way, he learned that vulnerability is weakness. And I know that despite all of that, despite the walls he's built, he has one of the kindest hearts I've ever encountered. Jae-won made a small sound beside her. She didn't look at him. I am not here for the money, Amara said. I am here because your grandson asked me to be, and I said yes because I believe that everyone deserves someone who sees them, really sees them, beyond the titles and the expectations, even heirs to empires, even people who think they don't deserve it. The dining room was absolutely silent. Grandmother Park studied her for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly the corner of her mouth lifted. "You are not what I expected," she said. "Neither is your grandson, Halmoni *. No, Grandmother Park glanced at Jae-won and something soft flickered in her sharp eyes. "He never has been." She picked up her utensils again. "The bulgogi * is getting cold. Eat, we have much to discuss." Amara exhaled. Under the table, Jae-won's hand found hers. And for the first time since this whole insane arrangement began, she allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, this might actually work. Or later that night. "You were incredible." They were in the back of Jae-won's town car, Seoul streaming past the tinted windows in a blur of neon and shadow. Amara was still wearing the burgundy dress, her carefully pinned locks beginning to loosen from their twist. "I was terrified," she admitted. "You didn't show it." Jae-won was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "The things you said about me were true." She turned to face him. "I wasn't lying, Jae-won. I was pushing back like you told me to, but I didn't make anything up. You've known me for a week. Some people you can know in a week. Some people show you exactly who they are if you're paying attention." "And who am I?" The question hung in the air between them. Amara reached over and straightened his tie, the same ugly tie she'd criticized when they first met, which he'd inexplicably continued to wear. "You're someone who spent his whole life trying to be worthy of a legacy he never asked for," she said quietly. "You're someone who pushes people away because it's easier than risking disappointment. And you're someone who, despite all of that, walked into a job agency and hired a complete stranger because you trusted your instincts." She smiled slightly. "You're braver than you think, Park Jae-won. You just haven't figured that out yet." He was very close now. Close enough that she could see the individual threads of silver in his silk tie, the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. Close enough that if she leaned forward just a few inches. "Amara," his voice was rough, "this wasn't supposed to happen." What wasn't? But she knew, of course she knew. It had been building since the moment their hands touched in his apartment, since he'd admitted he couldn't play piano, since he'd offered to take her to Namsan Tower because she was afraid to go alone. This wasn't part of the contract. This wasn't part of the plan. And yet, "I should tell the driver to take us home," Jae-won said. "Yes," Amara agreed, "you should." Neither of them moved. "This is a terrible idea," he said. "The worst," she agreed. His phone buzzed, then again, then again. Jae-won pulled back, reaching for the device with a sharp exhale. "It's my cousin," he said, his expression shifting to something harder. "Park Min-jun, he's asking why I didn't tell him about you." The moment shattered. Amara straightened in her seat, her heart still racing. "Min-jun, your grandmother mentioned him at dinner. He's next in line if I don't inherit, yes." Jae-won's jaw tightened. "He's been waiting for me to fail for 15 years, and now he knows about you, which means by tomorrow morning so will everyone else." "Is that a problem?" "It depends," he looked at her. "How ready are you to play this role in public?" Amara thought about the way his hand had felt in hers, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious, the way her heart was still pounding from a kiss that hadn't even happened. "I'm ready," she said. But even as she spoke the words, she felt something cold settle in her stomach. Because the truth was, she wasn't playing a role anymore. And that was going to be a problem. 1 week later, the most eligible bachelor in Korea is off the market. Exclusive, Park Jae-won, heir to the Hanyul Group fortune, spotted with mystery woman at exclusive Gangnam restaurant. Sources confirm the two have been dating for several months and are reportedly very serious. See photos inside. Amara stared at the tabloid article on her phone, her stomach sinking. The photos were grainy but unmistakable. Her and Jae-won leaving the restaurant from their first public date 3 nights ago. Her in a silver dress that the stylist had chosen. Him with his hand on the small of her back, leaning close to whisper something in her ear. They looked like a real couple. The comments section was less flattering. "Who is she? Never seen her before, gold digger. She's pretty, but what does she bring to the table? Foreign, really, what is he thinking? I don't see it, this won't last. And then, inevitably, ko uphuti kaisain, ko wesain, ko chinchain. Amara closed the app. She'd known this would happen. She'd prepared for it even. 3 years in Seoul had taught her that some people would never see past her skin color, would never accept that she belonged here. But knowing something and experiencing it were different things. You shouldn't read those. She looked up. Jae-won was standing in the doorway of the living room, already dressed for work in another impeccable suit. Too late, she set down her phone. Your public doesn't seem to approve of your choice in fake fiancés. My public can go to hell. He moved to sit beside her, closer than he would have a week ago. The only opinion that matters is my grandmother's, and she called me this morning to say she wants to have you for tea next week. Tea alone. Alone, he met her eyes. She likes you, Amara, genuinely likes you. She told me you have fire in your spirit. That sounds ominous. From my grandmother, it's the highest compliment. Amara wanted to feel relieved. She wanted to focus on the progress they were making, the plan that was working, the goal that was within reach. But all she could think about was the moment in the car, the way he'd said her name, the way she'd wanted to close the distance between them. Jae-won. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. It's Min-jun, I have to take this. He stepped out of the room, and Amara heard the murmur of his voice, tense, controlled through the closed door. She picked up her phone again, opened Instagram. Park Min-jun's profile was easy to find. He was 3 years younger than Jae-won, with the same sharp jaw and dark eyes, but where Jae-won's face was guarded, Min-jun's was cruel. Even in his carefully curated photos, at parties on yachts with beautiful women draped over his arm, there was something predatory in his smile. His latest post was a photo from some charity gala captioned, "Looking forward to some interesting developments in the family. Stay tuned." Amara's blood ran cold. He knew something, or thought he did. She was still staring at the post when Jae-won returned, his face like thunder. "What did he want?" she asked. "He's throwing a party this weekend, a welcome to the family celebration for you." Jae-won's voice was flat. "He wants to meet my mysterious fiancé." "And you said—" "I said we'd be there." He met her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't have a choice. Refusing would have been suspicious. So I'm walking into a trap." Probably, Min-jun doesn't do anything without an agenda. He sat down heavily, the controlled facade slipping for just a moment. "I should have anticipated this. I should have." Jae-won, Amara reached over and took his hand, a gesture that had become natural over the past week. "I can handle Min-jun." "You don't know him." "No, but I know men like him. Men who think they're the smartest person in the room and don't realize when someone sees right through them." She squeezed his fingers. "Tell me about him. Everything. His weaknesses, his patterns, the things he doesn't want people to know. We have 5 days to prepare." Jae-won looked at her for a long moment. "You really are remarkable," he said softly. "I'm a translator," she smiled slightly. "My job is to understand people and navigate complicated situations. This is just another negotiation." "Is that all this is to you? A negotiation?" The question hit her harder than it should have. Because no, it wasn't. It hadn't been just a negotiation for weeks now. Every shared meal, every quiet conversation, every accidental touch had been building towards something that neither of them was ready to name. "No," she admitted, "it's not." They sat in silence, hands still intertwined. "Amara," Jae-won said finally, "when this is over." "Don't," she pulled her hand back. "Please, not right now." Because she knew what he was going to say. She knew that he was starting to feel what she was feeling, that the lines between real and pretend were blurring beyond recognition. And she knew that talking about it, acknowledging it, would only make the inevitable ending more painful. This was a contract, 6 months, 200 million won. That was all it could ever be. "The party," she said, her voice carefully steady. "Tell me about Min-jun." Jae-won's expression shuttered, the moment passing. "He's dangerous," he said, "and he's going to try to destroy you." 5 days later. Min-jun's penthouse was all sharp edges and cold surfaces, the kind of space designed to intimidate rather than welcome. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across crowds of Seoul's elite, each guest more polished and expensive than the last. Amara felt like a gazelle walking into a lion's den. "Breathe," Jae-won murmured beside her, his hand warm on her waist. "You look incredible." She did. The stylist had outdone herself. The dress was a deep emerald green that made her dark skin glow, cut in a way that was elegant without being provocative. Her locks were loose tonight, cascading over her shoulders in carefully arranged waves. But no amount of expensive fabric could prepare her for what was coming. "Cousin, there you are." Min-jun materialized from the crowd like a shark sensing blood. He was handsome, objectively, undeniably handsome, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And this must be the famous Amara. He took her hand before she could react, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that lingered just a second too long. "I've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope." Amara kept her voice pleasant, her expression neutral. "Oh, nothing but good things from Jae-won, but you know how family talk spreads." His eyes gleamed. "Some people have questions." "Min-jun," Jae-won's voice carried a warning. "What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Min-jun released her hand but didn't step back. A foreign woman appearing out of nowhere, capturing the heart of Korea's most eligible bachelor. It's like something out of a drama. People want to know the story. "The story is simple," Amara said calmly. "We met, we fell in love. Interesting, I've looked into your background, Ms. Okonkwo. Quite thoroughly, actually." Amara's heart stuttered, but she kept her expression steady. "I'm flattered by your interest." "You should be. I don't give most of my cousin's conquests this much attention." He stepped closer, dropping his voice. "But you're different, aren't you? A translator whose company conveniently folded right before you started dating one of the richest men in Korea. A woman with mounting debts and an expiring visa. A very motivated person, one might say." Beside her, Jae-won had gone rigid. "What are you implying?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm not implying anything, I'm just curious." Min-jun turned back to Amara. "Tell me, Ms. Okonkwo, what exactly do you see in my cousin? His money, his position, or perhaps you just needed a way to stay in the country?" The guests nearby were pretending not to listen, but Amara could feel the weight of their attention. This was Min-jun's play. Humiliate her in public, plant seeds of doubt, destroy her credibility before she could solidify her place in the family. She could fold, stammer, play the victim. Or she could do what she did best. Push back. "You're right," Amara said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "I was desperate when I met your cousin. My company had closed, my visa was expiring, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was at one of the lowest points of my life." The room went quiet. Even Min-jun looked surprised by her candor. "But here's the thing about desperate moments," she continued. "They reveal who people really are. When everything fell apart, I could have done a lot of things. I could have taken the easy path, gone home, given up on everything I'd built here. Instead, I walked into a job agency looking for work." She met Min-jun's eyes steadily. "And there I met a man who didn't see my desperation as a weakness. He saw it as proof that I don't give up easily. He saw that I was willing to fight for what I wanted, even when the odds were against me." She smiled slightly. "That's what I see in your cousin, Mr. Park. Not his money, not his position. I see a man who looks at people and sees their potential rather than their problems. That's rarer than you might think." Min-jun's smile had frozen on his face. "And as for your investigation into my background," Amara stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I hope you found what you were looking for, because I have nothing to hide. Can you say the same?" For just a moment something flickered in Min-jun's eyes. Fear, uncertainty. Then the mask slid back into place. "You're clever," he murmured. "I'll give you that, but clever only gets you so far in this family." He glanced at Jae-won. "Enjoy your party, cousin. I have a feeling it's going to be a very interesting night." He vanished into the crowd. Jae-won's hand found hers, gripping tight. "That was necessary." Amara's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "He needed to know I wouldn't break." "You were magnificent." He was looking at her with something like awe. "I've never seen anyone handle him like that." "It's not over. You heard what he said, an interesting night. He has something planned." "I know." Jae-won's expression hardened. "We should leave before." "Attention, everyone." The room fell silent. Min-jun was standing on the raised platform at the far end of the room, champagne glass in hand. "I want to welcome you all to this very special evening," he announced. "As you know, we're here to celebrate the engagement of my dear cousin Jae-won to his lovely fiancée, Amara." Polite applause scattered through the crowd. "But before we toast to their happiness, I thought we might play a little game." Min-jun's smile was all teeth. "A test, if you will, to see just how well our happy couple knows each other." Amara's stomach dropped. "After all," Min-jun continued, "real love means knowing everything about your partner, their past, their secrets, their dreams." His eyes found Amara across the room. "There lies asterisk." He snapped his fingers. A massive screen descended from the ceiling, and on it appeared a photograph that made Amara's blood run cold. It was her from 5 years ago at a restaurant in Atlanta, sitting across from a man she'd worked very hard to forget. The man who had proposed to her 6 months before she came to Seoul. The man she'd left at the altar. "Ladies and gentlemen," Min-jun announced, "I present to you Amara's first fiancé, the one she never told my cousin about, the one who, according to my sources, she abandoned without explanation on what was supposed to be their wedding day." The room erupted in whispers. Amara couldn't breathe. She felt Jae-won turn to look at her, felt the weight of his confusion and hurt and betrayal. "Is this true?" he asked quietly. "You were engaged before." Amara closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "it's true." And just like that, everything fell apart. 1 hour later, they stood on opposite sides of the apartment living room, the Seoul skyline glittering mockingly beyond the windows. "Say something," Amara pleaded. Jae-won hadn't spoken since they left the party. Not in the car, not in the elevator, not as they walked through the door of the apartment that had started to feel like home. His silence was worse than anger. "What do you want me to say?" His voice was flat empty. "That I'm not surprised, that I expected you to have secrets, that I was foolish enough to think." He stopped abruptly. "Think what?" He turned to face her, and for the first time she saw the full extent of his pain. "I thought you were different," he said quietly. "I thought you were the one person who wouldn't lie to me." "I didn't lie." "You omitted, which is the same thing." He laughed humorlessly. "The irony isn't lost on me, you know. I hired you to pretend, to perform, and you performed so well that I forgot it was a performance." Amara's eyes burned. "It stopped being a performance weeks ago, you know that." "Do I? Because right now I don't know what's real and what isn't." He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling its careful perfection. "You were engaged, you left someone at the altar, and you never thought to mention this." "It wasn't relevant." "Not relevant," his voice rose. "We're pretending to be engaged, Amara. You didn't think your history of asterisk abandoning asterisk engagements was relevant." The word hit her like a slap. "I didn't abandon him," she said, her voice cracking. "I left him because," she stopped, swallowed. "I left him because I realized I was marrying him for all the wrong reasons. Reasons like money, security, a way out of a difficult situation." The bitterness in his voice was sharp. "Sound familiar?" "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" He closed the distance between them, and his eyes were blazing. "You came to me desperate and broke and looking for a solution. You signed a contract for money. How is this any different from what you did before?" "Because I love you." The words exploded out of her before she could stop them. They hung in the air, impossible to take back. Jae-won went still. "What?" "I love you." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she didn't try to hide them. It wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't part of the plan. But somewhere between the practice dates and the family dinners and all those nights on the couch watching terrible dramas together, I fell in love with you. The real you, the man who can't play piano. The man who works 18-hour days trying to be worthy of his grandmother. The man who flinches at touch because someone taught him that vulnerability was weakness. She reached up and touched his face, and he didn't pull away. "I should have told you about Marcus," she said. "You're right, but I didn't because I was ashamed. Because what happened with him is the reason I came to Seoul in the first place." "What happened?" Amara took a shaky breath. "I was 23 when I met him. He was everything I thought I wanted, stable, successful, adored by my parents. We dated for 3 years. He proposed, I said yes, and we started planning a wedding that everyone else wanted more than I did. She moved to the window, staring at the city lights. A week before the ceremony, I realized I couldn't go through with it. Not because I didn't love him, I did in a way, but I didn't love myself. I was so focused on being what everyone expected, the good daughter, the perfect bride, the woman who didn't cause problems, that I'd completely lost track of who I actually was. So you left. So I left. I didn't show up on the wedding day, and I've never forgiven myself for how I did it. Marcus deserved better than that. My family deserved better. She turned to face him. But leaving was the first honest thing I'd done in years, and it brought me here, to Seoul, to a chance to figure out who I am without everyone else's expectations weighing on me. Jae-won was silent for a long moment. And then you met me, he said. Another engagement, another contract. Yes, she held his gaze. But this is different. This was supposed to be fake. This was supposed to be a business arrangement. I wasn't supposed to fall for someone again, and definitely not like this. Not so completely. Not in a way that makes me want to fight for something I'm not even sure I can have. He stepped closer. What if you could have it? He asked quietly. What? What if this didn't have to end in 6 months? What if? He stopped, struggling with words that didn't come easily to him. What if I've fallen in love with you too? Amara's heart stopped. Jae-won, I know the circumstances are complicated. I know my family is a minefield and Min-jun is going to fight us every step of the way, and the entire country seems to have opinions about our relationship. He reached out and cupped her face in his hands. But I also know that I've never met anyone like you. Anyone who sees me the way you do. Anyone who makes me want to be better than I am. His forehead touched hers. I don't care what Min-jun says. I don't care what the tabloids print. I care about you. And if you're willing to fight for this for us, then I am too. Your grandmother loves you, genuinely, not as a performance. She called me last night and said you're the first person I've ever brought home who deserves me. Do you know how long I've waited to hear that from her? Amara laughed through her tears. This is insane, she said. We've known each other for 3 weeks. Some people you can know in a lifetime and never really see, and some people you can know in 3 weeks and feel like you've been waiting for them forever. He smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed his entire face. You taught me that. She closed her eyes, let herself feel it, all of it, the fear and the hope and the love she'd been trying so hard to suppress. Min-jun isn't going to stop, she said. No, but we'll handle him, together. And when people ask about my past, we tell them the truth. You made a mistake, you learned from it, you became a stronger person. He kissed her forehead. That's not a scandal, that's a journey. For a long moment they stood there in the dark apartment, wrapped in each other's arms. Then Amara pulled back and looked at him with determination. We need a plan, she said. For Min-jun. For everything, if we're doing this for real, we need to do it right. She straightened her shoulders. Your grandmother's tea is next week. The board meeting is in a month. Min-jun will try to sabotage us at every turn. We can't just react, we need to get ahead of him. Jae-won's expression shifted to something like admiration. What do you have in mind? You said Min-jun has secrets, things he doesn't want people to know. Her eyes were steady. I think it's time we found out what they are. 3 days later. The file was 3 inches thick. Amara sat at the dining room table, pages spread out before her like a map of Min-jun's sins. Bank records, photographs, testimony from former employees. This is worse than I expected, she said quietly. Jae-won stood by the window, his expression grim. Min-jun's been embezzling from his division for years. Small amounts, easy to hide, hard to trace, but it adds up. How did you get this? I have people, loyal people who have been waiting for an opportunity to expose him. He moved to sit beside her. The problem is using it. If I go public with this, it becomes a family scandal. My grandmother's legacy gets tarnished. The company's stock takes a hit. So we can't release it directly. No, but we can use it as leverage. He picked up one of the photographs, Min-jun meeting with a known corporate spy. If he knows we have this, he'll back off. Will he? He seems like the type who doubles down when cornered. That's why we need to be smart about this. Jae-won set down the photo. The board meeting is in 3 weeks. Min-jun is planning to use it to challenge my succession. He'll present his case for why I'm unsuitable, probably leaning heavily on our unconventional relationship and your questionable background. And if we present this evidence at the same meeting, it becomes his word against mine, messy, uncertain. He shook his head. I don't want to destroy him, Amara, he's still my cousin, I just want him to stop. Amara studied the documents, her mind racing. What if we don't need the board meeting at all? What do you mean? Your grandmother is the one who decides succession, right, not the board. Technically, yes, the board ratifies her decision, but she holds the real power. Then Min-jun's plan only works if he can convince your grandmother to change her mind about you. Amara leaned forward. But what if we convince her about him first? Yi-won's eyes widened slightly. Show her the evidence before the meeting. Privately, just the two of you. Let her make the decision about what to do with it. Amara touched his hand. You said she built this company from nothing. You said she survived scandals that would have destroyed anyone else. She'll know how to handle this, and she'll appreciate that you brought it to her first instead of going behind her back. He was quiet for a long moment. You're trusting her, he said, a woman you barely know. I'm trusting you and you trust her. She squeezed his fingers. Sometimes that's enough. Yi-won raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. Have I told you that you're remarkable? Once or twice, she smiled. Tell me again when this is over. The next morning, Grandmother Park's private study was filled with books, thousands of them, lining the walls from floor to ceiling. She sat in a leather chair by the window, a cup of tea growing cold on the table beside her. In her hands were the documents Yi-won had given her. Amara and Yi-won sat across from her, holding hands, waiting. For 5 long minutes, the only sound was the rustle of paper. Then Grandmother Park set down the file and removed her reading glasses. How long have you known? She asked Yi-won. I've suspected for years, but I couldn't prove it until recently. And you brought it to me instead of the board. Her expression was unreadable. Why? Because this is your company, your legacy, you built it and you should be the one to protect it. Yi-won's voice was steady. I won't pretend I don't have selfish reasons. Min-jun is trying to take what should be mine. But more than that, I don't want to see you hurt. You've given everything to Hanyul Group. You deserve to decide how this is handled. Grandmother Park was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Amara. And you, child, what is your role in this? Amara met her eyes steadily. I love your grandson, Halmoni *. I want to see him succeed, and I believe that families should protect each other, even when it's hard. You understand that if this becomes public, there will be consequences for you as well. The press will dig deeper into your past. They'll find every mistake you've ever made and magnify it. I know. And you're still willing to stand beside him. Yes. Grandmother Park studied her for a long moment. Something softened in her sharp eyes. I was wrong about you, Amara Okonkwo. Amara's heart stuttered. Wrong how, Halmoni? I thought you were clever, resourceful, perhaps even admirable. She smiled slightly. I didn't realize you were also brave. She stood, moving to her desk and pressing a button on her phone. Mrs. Kim, please schedule an immediate meeting with the board of directors, and tell Park Min-jun that his presence is required. She met Yi-won's eyes. It seems we have some house cleaning to do. Scene transition, the board meeting. The Hanyul Group boardroom was a cathedral of glass and steel, designed to intimidate. 20 executives sat around the gleaming table, their faces carefully neutral. Min-jun sat at the far end, his expression smug. He didn't know yet, didn't realize what was coming. Grandmother Park entered last, flanked by Yi-won and Amara. She moved to the head of the table with the steady grace of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Thank you all for gathering on short notice, she said. I understand this is irregular, but there is a matter of company security that requires immediate attention. Min-jun's smile flickered. I have evidence, Grandmother Park continued, that one of our senior executives has been systematically embezzling company funds for the past 6 years. The total amount exceeds 4 billion won. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Min-jun had gone very pale. The executive in question, Grandmother Park said, her voice cutting through the noise, is my grandson Park Min-jun. She set the file on the table. I want to be clear, she continued. This is not about family drama. This is about the integrity of the company I have spent my entire life building. Min-jun's actions are not merely illegal, they are a betrayal of everything Hanyul Group stands for. Min-jun stood abruptly. This is absurd. These documents are fabricated. They're not. Yi-won's voice was calm. I have sworn testimony from 3 former employees, bank records verified by independent auditors, and security footage from your private meetings with Kim Tae-sik. Min-jun's face went from pale to ashen. Kim Tae-sik, grandmother Park said quietly, is currently under investigation for corporate espionage. The authorities will be very interested to learn about your connection to him. The room was absolutely silent. Min-jun looked around wildly, but found no allies. The board members who had once supported him were suddenly very interested in their notepads. Grandmother, his voice cracked, please, I can explain. I'm sure you can, but not to me. Grandmother Park nodded to the security guards by the door. The police are waiting outside. They have questions for you. As Min-jun was escorted out, his protests echoing down the corridor, Grandmother Park turned to face the board. There will be a restructuring, she announced. Effective immediately, Park Jae-won will assume the role of CEO, with full authority over company operations. I will remain as chairman of the board in an advisory capacity. She looked at Jae-won, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. My grandson has proven himself worthy of this position, not through his name or his birthright, but through his integrity, his judgment, and his choice of partner. She nodded at Amara. This company is in good hands. Jae-won bowed deeply, a bow of gratitude, respect, and love. Thank you, Halmoni *. Don't thank me, prove me right. Scene transition, 6 months later. Namsan Tower sparkled above them, a beacon of light against the night sky. Amara stood at the observation deck, looking out at the city that had become her home. Thousands of love locks glittered on the railings, each one a promise made and kept. I can't believe it took me 3 years to come here, she said. Jae-won wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Was it worth the wait? Everything was worth the wait. She turned in his arms, facing him. The struggle, the uncertainty, the terrifying meeting with your grandmother, your cousin trying to destroy me at a party, all of it, because it led to this. To standing on a tourist attraction in the cold. To standing here with you. He smiled, that full, unguarded smile that she still wasn't used to seeing. I have something for you, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Amara's breath caught. Before you say anything, he opened the box to reveal a ring, a simple band set with a deep blue sapphire. This isn't because of the contract. It's not because of my grandmother or the company or anything except that I love you, and I want the whole world to know it. Jae-won, you taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. You taught me that it's okay to need someone to let them in, to build a life that isn't just about work and legacy and expectation. He dropped to one knee, right there on the observation deck, surrounded by startled tourists and flashing cameras. Amara Okonkwo, will you marry me? For real this time? She was laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, she said. Yes, of course, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that drew applause from the crowd around them. When they finally broke apart, Amara rested her forehead against his. You know this means I can never leave you now, she said. That's the plan. And our mothers are going to be insufferable about the wedding. We'll survive, we survived Min-jun, we can survive anything. And the tabloids are going to have a field day. Let them, he kissed her again, softer this time. I don't care what anyone says, I only care about you. Behind them, the love locks glittered in the darkness, thousands of promises made by thousands of couples, each one hoping their love would last. But Amara knew with a certainty that surprised her that theirs would. 1 year later, the wedding was held in the garden of Grandmother Park's estate, beneath a canopy of cherry blossoms. Amara walked down the aisle in a dress that blended Korean and Nigerian traditions, a flowing white gown with subtle **** embroidery, her locks woven with delicate flowers. Her mother walked beside her, tears streaming down her face, whispering prayers of gratitude. At the altar, Jae-won waited, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Grandmother Park sat in the front row, dignified as always, but her eyes were soft. They had come so far, from strangers in a job agency to partners in every sense of the word. They had faced betrayal and scandal, and the weight of expectations that could have crushed them both. But they had also found something worth fighting for. The officiant spoke the vows. Jae-won slid a band onto her finger, next to the sapphire that hadn't left her hand in a year. Amara did the same for him, her hands trembling only slightly. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The crowd erupted in applause, but Amara barely heard it. All she could see was Jae-won, his smile, his eyes, his heart that she had somehow been lucky enough to earn. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he whispered back, "and I always will." They kissed, sealing a promise that had started as a contract and become something infinitely more. Behind them, the cherry blossoms drifted down like snow, blessing the beginning of a story that would last forever. Love wasn't the plan. It was never supposed to happen. But sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never see coming. And sometimes the biggest problems become our greatest gifts. Please kindly hit the subscription button, comment and like, as this motivates more stories from this channel.